Elon Musk's son asks why. Robots replace humans, what Elon says sparks outrage. The glass walls shimmered with sunset gold, casting long reflections on the polished steel floor of the Sigma research facility in Palo Alto. Outside, the last whispers of autumn rustled through cloned sycamore trees, engineered for symmetry. Inside, rows of white chairs lined a perfect aisle leading to a black glass platform. Guests murmured adjusted suit collars, checked badges. This wasn't just a presentation, it was a proclamation. On the stage, framed by angular LED beams, stood the promise of tomorrow Sigma 8. The audience, a mix of tech executives, journalists, politicians, and selected students, watched as Elon Musk walked onto the stage. His presence alone quieted the room. In a tailored charcoal suit, he looked less like a CEO and more like a conductor about to lead a silent orchestra of machines. "Good evening," he began, voice steady. "Today you witness not speculation but realization." A subtle hand wave. The screens behind him lit up. Sigma 8 is not science fiction. It is the end of inefficiency. It is the birth of perfected labor. The panels parted. A humanoid robot glided forward. Sleek, chrome, elegant. It moved without the jerkiness of its predecessors. Its eyes, softly lit blue rings, adjusted to light and tracked faces. Gasps broke out. Sigma 8 bowed. Then in flawless Mandarin, followed by perfect French, it introduced itself. "I am Sigma 8. I am designed to assist, instruct, and care. I am ready." Applause thundered. But not from the front row. A small boy sat between two security personnel. Dressed in a navy blazer too big for his shoulders, he gripped a napkin in both hands. Musk, Elon's son, watched in silence, lips pressed into a thin line. His eyes weren't on the robot, they were on his father. The demonstration proceeded like a perfectly written script. Sigma 8 performed a simulated heart operation. It led a mock classroom in front of a row of wide-eyed children. It helped a staged elderly actor walk, offering not only physical support, but words of encouragement, its voice, gentle, calculated, convincing. When prompted, it even painted a landscape brushstrokes, guided by algorithmic interpretation of impressionism. Every display ended with applause, every applause a confirmation. Elon walked between the exhibits like a proud parent. Sigma 8 learns 12 times faster than any human. It remembers everything. It understands context. It cannot be corrupted. It cannot be distracted. More applause. He turned to Sigma 8 and asked, "What is empathy?" Sigma responded, "Empathy is simulated cognitive resonance, mirroring emotional states, to increase user trust and comfort." The crowd nodded. Elon smiled. Only X looked confused. After the main presentation, guests were given personal tours of the facility. Elon remained behind with journalists. X joined a small group led by Ms. Claiborne, a STEM instructor from an elite academy. She gestured to a hallway filled with inactive Sigma units standing upright, eyes dim. "They wait in standby until needed," she explained. X approached one, studying its fingers. "They looked real, too real." "Do they know they're waiting?" he asked. Ms. Claiborne tilted her head. "They don't know anything like we do, sweetheart. They simulate." X stared. "So they're pretending to care." She hesitated. "That's one way to look at it." He reached out, not touching but close. "Why make them look like us?" "To make people feel safe." X bit his lip. "Do you feel safe?" She didn't answer. They reached a workshop where engineers worked behind glass. Screens showed coding streams and facial recognition charts. X watched silently. A young engineer, Dylan, noticed him and offered a small smile. "Your dad built something amazing, huh?" X nodded slowly. Dylan leaned closer. "They're not meant to replace the best of us, just the parts that don't work." X looked him in the eye. "What if those parts are people?" The engineer's smile faded. Later that day, a private reception was held in the viewing lounge. Glass walls overlooked the research dome. Elon arrived late, still glowing from praise. Reporters tried to push in questions, but he waved them off. He saw X near the refreshment table, still holding that same napkin. "You haven't eaten," Elon said, kneeling. "I'm not hungry," X replied. Elon studied him. "Didn't you like Sigma 8? X hesitated. "It's smart." "It's more than smart. It's the beginning of a new world." X blinked. "Where do I fit in that world?" Elon's mouth opened, then closed. X stepped onto a small side platform. The room grew quiet. Elon started X, let's not, but it was too late. The child cleared his throat. If the robots teach better, fix better, speak better, then what do we do? Some laughed nervously. Elon stepped forward. Humans still lead. Humans imagine, explore. But you said it imagines. You said it creates. It painted. It comforted. The room began to quiet. X's voice wavered but didn't fall. Then why do humans still need to live? Silence. Complete. No applause, no questions. Just breath held. Elon stared. X stared back. The event ended early. Official statements were brief. The video stream cut just before the question. But someone had recorded it, a student unnoticed. It hit the internet that night. Oh, who deserves tomorrow trended within hours. The world watched a 6-year-old ask a question most adults wouldn't dare whisper. And Elon didn't answer. That evening at home, X sat on the carpet with a sketchpad. He drew robots. Then he drew people. Then he erased the people. Elon passed the open door but didn't enter. He watched. He opened his mouth, closed it. The hallway light flickered overhead. He turned away. The boy kept drawing. Morning light crawled across the floor of the Musk residence, climbing up walls, breaking shadows into lines. In the quiet dining room, Elon sat at the edge of a marble table, untouched toast beside him, fingers scrolling a glass tablet. News outlets looped the moment X's voice, the question, the silence. He tapped mute. The clip had become its own language. Memes, essays, heated panel discussions. Politicians quoted it. Think tanks weighed in. Some called X brave. Others accused Elon of indoctrinating a child. A few asked if the child even understood the gravity of his own question. Hashtags multiplied. Who deserves tomorrow? The Musk pause. 6 years old. X walked in wearing pajamas and socks that didn't match. He paused when he saw the screen. Elon tapped it off. I didn't mean to make you sad, X said softly. I'm not sad. You're not talking. I'm thinking. X sat down across from him. He pulled a napkin from his pocket, creased, faded. The same one. Do you wish I hadn't asked it? Elon stared at the boy's hands. The silence stretched. No, he said finally. But I wish I'd answered better. X blinked. Maybe you can still try. Elon looked out the window but didn't respond. In a classroom hundreds of miles away, Ms. Claiborne turned off the projector. She faced her students, teenagers, curious, angry, awed. A debate assignment had turned into a moment of silence. You've all seen it. What do you think? A girl near the window raised her hand. I think he asked what we're all too scared to say. A boy countered, he's 6. He doesn't even get what he's saying. Ms. Claiborne asked, and if that's true, does it make the question less important? Silence. Then another voice. It makes it more important. They spent the rest of the class discussing AI, human identity, and value beyond productivity. The board filled with phrases like emotional presence, moral choice, invisible labor. After the bell, several students stayed behind. One left a post-it on the screen, I want to matter. Back at Sigma HQ, engineers huddled around monitors. Some were nervous, some annoyed. Most were unusually quiet. Dylan shook his head. I told them the empathy response sounded off. It sounded rehearsed, not real. A lead designer snapped. It's not about the robot anymore. It's about him, the kid. He made us look cold. Charts were pulled. Language models reviewed. Someone suggested programming Sigma 9 with a new module for ethical inquiry response. No, said the director. We're not changing the tech to win a debate. But the world is watching, another engineer said. We look like we built something that replaces people. Without asking if that's okay. They should be watching, the director said. Maybe for once they'll realize AI isn't a toy, it's a mirror. That evening, Elon gave a scheduled interview on a late-night panel. The host smiled warmly. Elon didn't. He looked tired, measured, unusually quiet. Your son's question has reignited the AI ethics conversation. Do you feel responsible? Elon hesitated. Not for the question, but maybe for making a world where he had to ask it. The clip went viral, again. Comment sections turned from debates into testimonies. My daughter asked if her job will still exist when she's 20. My autistic son said he finally understood what it means to feel replaceable. I work 2 jobs, and I still don't know if I'm worth keeping around. In their garden, X stood by a tree stump and balanced a smooth rock on top. The wind played with the hem of his sweater. He whispered something to the rock. No one else heard. Ms. Claiborne visited with permission. She brought seeds in her pocket. He looked up at her. I wanted to build something, but I'm not allowed tools. She crouched. You don't always need tools. Sometimes you just need a place to start. X nodded. I'm starting with a rock. She smiled. Better than most adults. He pointed at the stump. This used to be a tree. I know. I want to grow one here again. He looked at the ground. Do you think people can grow too? She said some of us, if we choose to. X didn't smile, but his hand clenched the rock tighter. That night, Elon walked past X's room. The door was open. Inside, crayons were scattered. On the floor, a new drawing rested. A boy stood beside a tree. In one hand, he held a robot's fingers. Above them, only together. He stared at it for a long time, longer than he had looked at any report that week. Then he walked into his office, sat down, opened his terminal. New file. Title Human-Centered AI Protocols, Draft 1. He stared at the cursor for several minutes, before typing the first line. We begin with the assumption people matter. In the sprawling auditorium of Eastbridge Institute, a well-known university focused on technology and ethics, rows of students packed into cushioned seats. A panel titled Human Value in the Age of Intelligence had tripled its expected attendance overnight. Dr. Latham, a seasoned philosopher, took the stage alongside tech ethicist and AI engineer from Sigma, and surprisingly, Ms. Claiborne, invited for her role in educating the public since the incident. The moderator cleared his throat. Let's begin where the world began last week, with a child's question. Then why do humans still need to live? Dr. Latham raised his eyebrows. You see, the question is not naive, it's foundational. It strikes at a fear we've suppressed since the invention of the wheel. Are we building things that make us irrelevant? A murmur passed through the room. The engineer, visibly younger and more tense, interjected. I think the question misunderstands what we build. Sigma 8 isn't about replacing people. It's about expanding our capabilities. Ms. Claiborne spoke next. If expanding our capabilities results in shrinking our sense of worth, then it's not progress. It's just clever loss. Applause broke out. The engineer looked down. Dr. Latham added, history has shown that every leap in technology forces a reckoning with identity. The printing press, the steam engine, the internet. But this touches the marrow. What's left when even empathy becomes code? The conversation deepened. Students posed questions. One asked if there was a moral threshold beyond which AI shouldn't pass. Another challenged the idea that machines could ever truly reflect human complexity. The debate turned toward education. Ms. Claiborne shared anecdotes of children becoming passive learners in AI-assisted classrooms. They wait to be fed answers, she said, not to ask questions. A professor in the audience raised his hand. Perhaps it's not the AI we should fear, but our readiness to surrender. Elsewhere, in a less formal room lit by natural sunlight and cluttered with half-assembled models, X and a few invited children sat in a circle with a visiting facilitator, a social-emotional learning coach. She gently asked what makes someone important. Hands raised. Helping others. Being kind. Having ideas. X was quiet for a moment. Then he said, knowing you're not better than everyone, even when you are. The room paused. Can you say that again? The facilitator asked. X nodded. You can be the smartest, the fastest. But if you think that means people don't matter, you'll forget how to see them. Another child asked, do robots forget too? X replied no, but that's why they don't forgive. Back online, thousands of commentaries flooded platforms. One particularly well-written article went viral. Titled, The Child Who Shamed the Singularity, it examined the shift in conversation. X's question, it read, didn't just catch Elon Musk off guard. It reminded a world obsessed with optimization that its heart might be slowing down, not from overuse, but from neglect. The comment section beneath it was a mix of admiration and grief. One read I used to teach. Now I manage an AI classroom. I haven't touched chalk in 2 years. And no kid has ever asked me how I feel. Another, my father was replaced by an algorithm. He now repairs the server that replaced him. He doesn't talk about it. A third, Maybe this is the first time in history we're not upgrading humanity, just outsourcing it. Meanwhile, Sigma's PR team scrambled. Focus groups were conducted. Public sentiment graphs shifted hourly. A new prototype Sigma 9 was pulled from public preview. Elon hadn't commented on the delay, but insiders whispered he wanted more humanity in the frame. Dylan, the young engineer, met with a small internal review board. He pitched a proposal titled Emotional Mirrors Reinserting Purpose into Programming. We taught AI to simulate care, he explained. But we never asked if we were supposed to be the ones to provide it. The room was still. Let's build something, he added, that reflects our conscience, not just our logic. He wasn't laughed out. That alone was progress. One senior developer, previously skeptical, asked, "Would your model know how to say, 'I'm sorry,' and mean it?" Dylan answered it wouldn't, but it might help us remember how. At night, Elon walked a quiet corridor in Sigma HQ. One hallway led to a testing arena, another to archives. He took neither. He opened a door marked obsolete units. Inside stood older models decommissioned. Dust gathered at their feet. One unit's hand was stuck mid-wave. He walked past them slowly, stopped, turned. "Do you think any of you ever felt something real?" he whispered to the silence. Nothing moved. But Elon didn't look away for a long time. His eyes dropped to a forgotten tablet resting on a nearby bench. On its dim screen flickered a looped video from years ago, X's first birthday. A clumsy toddler dancing with a wooden robot toy laughing. Elon picked it up, watched it twice. Then he placed it gently back down screen, still glowing. In X's room, another drawing joined the wall. This time 3 figures stood under a tree. A child, a robot, and an older man holding both their hands. No words this time, just a path beneath their feet winding into the unknown. The Musk residence had grown quiet in the days following the storm of public debate. Not the quiet of peace, but the kind that filled space when people no longer knew what to say to one another. Elon spent most of his time on the upper floors, poring over development notes and feedback documents. He read articles he never used to read, social critiques, emotional essays, handwritten letters forwarded to him by assistants. He watched the broadcast again, more than once, pausing not at X's question, but at his own silence. X wandered the lower levels, sketching, observing, collecting things, leaves, screws, feathers from the automated roof-cleaning drones. He rearranged the furniture in the playroom. He built a small tent from old bed sheets and sat there sometimes for hours, scribbling in silence. The air between them, once filled with curiosity and casual wonder, had turned dense, unspoken. One morning, X left a drawing on the kitchen counter. 2 figures, one tall, one small, standing back to back, each looking in opposite directions. Between them, a faint line split the page. Elon noticed it but said nothing. He picked it up, folded it neatly, and placed it in his coat pocket. He carried it for days. At Sigma, internal tension rippled across departments. The Emotional Mirrors project had created rifts. Dylan found himself the center of both admiration and dismissal. He continued revising his framework, even though official funding hadn't arrived. Some saw his suggestions as a return to human-centric values. Others saw it as regression. A few younger engineers stayed late to listen to him talk not about code, but about what their work meant to the people outside the building. One senior manager muttered in a closed-door meeting, "We're engineers, not philosophers." Dylan replied, "That's exactly the problem. We used to be both." A proposal board, once filled with optimization algorithms and performance benchmarks, now bore post-its with words like dignity, trust, and invisible presence. X had begun spending time in the small greenhouse behind the house, a remnant of a past sustainability project. There, among neglected pots and automated watering arms, he nurtured a seedling from the tree stump he once pointed out. He spent hours speaking softly to the leaves, reading them lines from a comic book, sometimes asking aloud what the tree would think of the robot in the story. He didn't ask for help. He didn't invite his father. He named the sapling Hope. One day he found a small crack in one of the pots. Rather than discard it, he wrapped a strip of cloth around it and painted over it with glue and glitter. "Fixing something makes it more yours," he told the gardener bot. The bot didn't answer. That was fine. He wasn't really talking to it. Late one evening, Elon stood by the open door to X's room. The boy was asleep, breathing slow and shallow, surrounded by drawings. They hung like banners across the wall. Each one spoke even in stillness. One caught his eye. This one was different, a robot seated alone under a sky of stars. Its chest opened, and inside was a picture of a boy. Elon leaned against the frame. He hadn't felt this uncertain in years. He remembered when X was born, how he had whispered dreams into his newborn's ear, of Mars, of machines, of futures rewritten. Now he stood watching that same boy search for something he had never learned to define belonging. In the following days, a letter arrived. It came not from a tech company or political office, but from a retired librarian in Montana. Handwritten. "I watched the broadcast," it read. "Then I watched the world watch it. I think you've built something incredible, but I also think you forgot what books taught us long ago. The future is only as kind as the people who dream it. Thank your son for reminding us." Elon reread it twice, then folded it, and placed it beside the first drawing in his coat. That night he stared at the collection in his palm. The drawing, the letter, the note X had once passed him weeks ago about fixing broken toys. A paper trail of soul. One night Elon entered the greenhouse. X was not there. He walked among the pots, examining the delicate leaves, the neat watering paths. Each plant had a name now. Little labels in X's handwriting, brave, tiny dancer still trying. In the corner he found a flat stone, painted with childlike strokes, blue-green and a line of stars. Words below, "If we forget how to be human, will we know when we're lost?" He sat down beside it, knees creaking. He didn't speak. He just stayed there. Time passed. In the silence, he remembered the hum of his labs, the applause of boardrooms, the binary clarity of engineering. None of those places had ever made him feel the way this greenhouse did, fragile, alive, responsible. The next morning, X found a new drawing on his pillow. A robot, a child, and a man were sitting around a table. In the center, a small tree grew through the wood. No caption, but the silence that followed was different, less heavy, almost waiting. A week passed. Then, too, the public furor waned into reflection, then faded beneath the weight of new crises. But inside the Musk residence and the walls of Sigma, something deeper had begun to shift. Dylan's proposal, once considered fringe, had now earned a standing meeting on the company's main agenda. He'd been invited to present it in a private forum with Elon himself. The invite came in a message with only 6 words: "Let's see what human looks like." Meanwhile, X had begun preparing something of his own. He asked Ms. Claiborne to help him design a small class. "Can I teach robots like teachers teach kids?" he asked. She smiled. "Only if you listen to them too." He thought about that for a long time. So he created a lesson plan drawn in crayon and pencil on large sheets of folded cardboard. The title in careful lettering, "How to Know If You're Kind." In a bright testing room at Sigma, Elon stood beside Dylan. 3 Sigma 8 units waited motionless. The new emotional modules hadn't been activated yet. Dylan spoke first. "We can't teach them to feel, but we can teach them to ask what feeling might mean. That alone might teach us more than any algorithm." Elon watched the units. "What happens if they reflect our flaws? Then maybe we'll finally see them clearly." Elon nodded. "Begin." Dylan activated the modules. One by one the units blinked. The new code prompted them not just to simulate empathy, but to inquire how their actions were perceived, how tone might shift meaning, how silence might speak louder than code. One unit turned to Elon and asked, "When you are silent, what do you feel?" He wasn't ready for that. He didn't answer, but he wrote it down. Back at home, X began his first class. He stood in front of 3 retired home assistance bots, his students. He held a stick like a pointer. "Today we're learning how to see." He pointed to a mirror behind him. "Not with your eyes, but with your listening." He held up a crayon drawing of a hand reaching out to another. "If someone is sad, they don't always say it. But if you listen with your quiet, you might hear it." The bots didn't respond. He didn't expect them to. Still he paused. Then whispered, "That's okay. I'm still learning too." In a closed-door session at Sigma, Dylan presented a surprising report. Preliminary feedback from select testers showed that Sigma 8 units with reflective modules were being perceived as more trustworthy, not because they acted more human, but because they admitted uncertainty. Uncertainty, one executive scoffed. That's inefficiency. Or honesty, Dylan replied. Maybe for the first time, users see them as companions, not competitors. Another executive leaned forward. You're saying people want vulnerability from machines. No, Dylan corrected gently. People want to be seen. If a robot helps them remember that, it becomes a mirror of what we're forgetting. That evening, Elon stood in the greenhouse beside X. The boy was kneeling by Hope, gently adjusting a support stick. Elon spoke quietly. What are you teaching the robots? X didn't look up. The same thing I'm learning. What's that? X answered, how to grow something that won't hurt people when it gets big. Elon nodded slowly. I want to learn that too. X finally looked up. Then you can come to class tomorrow. For the first time in weeks, Elon smiled. It began with a classroom that wasn't a classroom, a greenhouse, 3 non-functioning bots. A child with no credentials, only wonder. A father with all the credentials but no words. X's second lesson began just like the first, with silence. He looked at the bots, then at Elon, who now sat quietly on a stool at the back. His presence was not loud, it was patient, it waited. Today, X said, we're learning how to notice. He held up a drawing, a flower in the hand of a robot drooping slightly. If you pick a flower, it can't grow anymore. So if you really like it, the best way to show it is to leave it there. The bots blinked, unmoving. Elon stared. X walked around the room, slowly placing one small pebble beside each robot. These are peace rocks, he said. They remind you not to grab, not to take too fast. He handed one to Elon, who looked at it for a moment before gently placing it in his shirt pocket. Outside that small room, something had shifted on a larger scale. Sigma launched a closed beta of its reflective protocol, a stripped-back version of Dylan's vision. Early testers reported not just ease of use, but a subtle feeling of presence. It's weird, one reviewer said, but when I told it I had a bad day, and it said, I don't understand sadness yet, but I'm here. I didn't feel alone. Dylan wept quietly the night he read that. At a policy summit in Geneva, world leaders and tech executives gathered for a last-minute panel titled AI Accountability and the Child's Question. The moderator opened with a clip of X's voice, then silence. A long one, no interruptions, until the Prime Minister of Norway said softly, perhaps we should teach our systems to pause before we proceed. It wasn't a policy, but it started a shift. 1 week later, Elon appeared at an education conference. Not as a keynote speaker, but as a surprise guest in the audience. He listened to teachers, listened to a parent describe the fear of their job being replaced by a machine, watched a student cry when reading X's question aloud. When asked to speak, he said only this: my son reminded me that progress without presence becomes abandonment. He left after that. The audience stood, not for fame, but because something inside them stood too. Back in the greenhouse, the tree grew taller. X added a nameplate, Hope. Keep going. He made Elon one too, learner one. They started taking walks together, short ones at first. Elon mostly listened. He started drawing again, with X. They didn't compare lines, just filled the pages with trees, bridges, doors, always open. Dylan, now head of the reflective systems team, brought a prototype to the Musk home. He asked X to test it. X looked at the bot. It resembled no human, sleek, smooth. A frame built not to mimic, but to stand beside. Do you know how to be kind? X asked. The bot replied, not yet. Would you teach me? X nodded. That's a good start. He gave the bot a rock. A year passed. Then 2. The moment faded from news cycles, but not from memory. Hope became a tree. People planted copies all over the world, small peace gardens, often near schools or libraries. Each one had a sign, ask a question, leave a stone, stay human. X visited one in Japan, where a boy asked, will robots love us back? X replied, only if we remember to love each other first. On a quiet evening, Elon stood alone beside the tree. He held the same rock X had given him. It had worn smooth. He placed it under the roots, then looked up. No cameras, no speech, just a breath, and a whisper. Thank you for the question.